Hello stargazers and magic makers, I'm Yolanda. Welcome to my channel. So if you are new here, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I am a certified astrologer. I've been practicing astrology for over 20 years now. My practice is a blend of traditional and modern methods, but I do tend to lean more towards the archetypal and psychological. If you follow me on Substack or if you read my blog, you will notice this, you'll be aware of this. And if you don't follow me on Substack, I encourage you to please go visit my blog and check it out, see if you like what I'm doing there. I would appreciate your follow, your reading. So today I thought I would speak to you about eclipses because I'm filming this during eclipse season, August 2025, and the eclipses are happening in Virgo and Pisces. That's the nodal axis. And this video is about how to survive and hopefully thrive during eclipses, because I've been doing this for a really long time, and I know people panic around or they just dread eclipse season, and rightly so, because the quality of the energy is uncertain, unstable, unpredictable, all those uns. But we have to remember that there is no such thing as certainty. The universe is built on uncertainty. There is no such thing as a certain or a definite thing. So it's interesting to me how we begin, how we begin to, or how we do dread this time of the year, eclipse season, because of this element of uncertainty, and also because depending on where the eclipse falls on your chart, you could be going through a lot. Not everyone will feel eclipses. They won't even be aware of it really, unless, obviously they'll be aware of it if they're outside and they witness the blocking or the blotting out of the sun. Then they are in darkness, and then sure, they know about it. But not everyone is going to be made aware of it, because the eclipses aren't touching or activating any of their personal planets or points in their chart. Now this is very important, and I need to stress this, because that's the only time you're really aware of eclipses, is if it actually happens on a stressful part of your chart, and there is a planet or a point there that's being activated. So that's very important. I don't want you to be running around panicking, thinking, oh well, it's eclipse season, the luminaries are blotting each other's light out, and well, luminaries represent our eyes as well. So the moon and the sun represent our vision, our eyes. And traditional astrologers and ancient astrologers would caution everyone and warn people to stay indoors, for example, during eclipses. And I think it's sound advice. I personally don't run around. I don't go stand outside under a total solar eclipse, for example. But sometimes you have to get to work or you have to do things, and this happens. So there's really no need to panic, though, like I said, unless it is happening on a stressful, let's call it a stressful part of your birth chart, where there are planets or points being activated by the eclipse. Now, don't worry, we'll go into it more in this video. What else did I want to say about eclipses? Right at the end, I'm going to share with you tips on how to survive. So if you don't really want to listen to the lesson of how eclipses happen and why they matter, then you might want to just go to the end of this video. All right, so let's get started. Okay, I'm going to have some tea. Okay, so eclipses. From our perspective here on Earth, the sun moves or appears to move across the sky from east to west and travels through the 12 signs of the zodiac in a year-long journey. The sun's path is called the ecliptic because it is the part of the sky where eclipses occur. The moon orbits around the earth and she too travels around through the 12 signs of the zodiac, but she does so in 1 month, and during that time she completes her cycle of phases from new moon to full moon and back. The moon's motion along the ecliptic is measured in degrees, but her orbit doesn't align exactly with the ecliptic. So she deviates by about 5 degrees of celestial latitude north and south each month, and then every 2 weeks the moon crosses the sun's track at the points known as the moon's nodes. If the sun is close to one of the nodes when the moon crosses the ecliptic, then an eclipse is imminent or about to happen. A solar eclipse occurs at the new moon when the moon lines up between the earth and the sun at one of the nodes. And because the moon is so much smaller than the sun, but from our earth appears almost the same size because it is much closer to the earth than the sun. And I actually think the distance is something like the moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but the distance between the moon, the earth and the sun is 400 times or something like that. I can't remember the distance, but anyway, that is why the moon blots out the sun's light during a total solar eclipse. During a partial solar eclipse, obviously only the sun, a partial amount of light is obscured. Then a lunar eclipse occurs on a full moon when the moon crosses the ecliptic in opposition to the sun. With the sun and the moon aligned on either side of the earth, the moon passes through the shadow projected by the earth in a total lunar eclipse. Now, the moon's nodes are significant astrological points in their own right. Traditionally, the north node is called the dragon's head and is said to be of benefic influence of the nature of Jupiter. And the south node is called the dragon's tail and is considered malefic and is of the nature of Saturn. Now, let me take a little moment here to dive into this a little deeper. Dragons in the language of myth have always been connected with dynamic power and force. So when the nodes are activated, I want you to think in terms of moving things along. Things start happening. Energy starts shifting. So if you've been feeling blocked or as if things have become stagnant, then welcome eclipse season, because what happens during eclipse season is things start moving again, right? That's why it's symbolically compared to a dragon. The other thing I want to speak about here quickly is the dragon's head. See it as an open and hungry mouth. Now, yes, traditionally, it's long been associated with it's a benefic, associated with good things. But yeah, too much of a good thing is not so great. And this hungry mouth just wants to take in, take in, take in. Not necessarily good. Just like Jupiter is not just good. There is a side to Jupiter that is insatiable, constantly hungry, always wanting to expand, expand, expand until poof, you're no more. You're gone. So remember that you have to always consider everything can go two ways. Again, remember we're dealing with uncertain energy. It can become extreme quite quickly. When is enough enough? That kind of attitude that comes into play when eclipses are happening. Now, the tail part, obviously, we all know what happens. The tail part expels, gets rid of toxic material. It's interesting that it's a malefic. It's considered a malefic in traditional astrology. And in evolutionary astrology, the tail is compared to, or is often referred to as the south node, indicates where we are comfortable, where we are accustomed to things, and also our soul, from our previous life, is just acquainted with that area of the chart where you find your south node. All of that comes easily to us. The north node in evolutionary astrology is connected with what you should be expanding on, what you should be focusing on or moving towards in this lifetime. And I like that. I do like that, and I do stress that to my clients. I always say, well, north node, you want to aim that way. You want to get more of that done in this lifetime and less of the south node stuff done. However, we need both. We need the entire dragon functioning and healthy and happy. We can't just focus on one and ignore the other, because what happens if you just ingest, there's this toxic build-up, there's this build-up, and eventually what happens inside the belly of the dragon, so to speak, is things start fermenting and decaying and polluting and poisoning the system. So I want you to think in terms of that. See this beautiful dragon, this creature out there in the sky. And if you're taking your experiences, how are you processing these experiences? Or are you, and this is where the shadow material comes in, or as you're experiencing stuff, are you blocking it or refusing to deal with it, look at it, process it, right? The word process is coming up a lot here, but what are you doing with that stuff? How is this experience translating into more? In other words, is this experience helping you evolve and grow? If it's not, if you have taken something in, and not necessarily just taken in something, but like if you have now acquired, or you're in a new relationship, or you have a new friend or something, but this person their behavior, for example, is poisoning the system, then you have to move away from that person. You have to let them go. So hopefully you can see what I'm saying. But the eclipses mostly highlight, in my experience, the psychological process. But let's get to that. Let's carry on with the nodes here. So next slide. There you go. So the nodes travel retrograde along the ecliptic. They always move backwards in the chart, right? So, for example, we are in Virgo and Pisces season. Now it's going to go, when it moves again, the axis, it's going to go to Leo and Aquarius. So it moves backwards. Okay. The nodes travel retrograde along the ecliptic. Each month the moon crosses the ecliptic 1.5 west, I think, of its previous crossing point, so that the nodal line, which joins the north and south nodes, regresses about 19 degrees every year and makes a complete retrograde revolution of the ecliptic in about 19 years. So you may want to look at what you were doing. We are now in 2025. What were you doing 19 years ago, or what was going on in your life 19 years ago? There may be a repetition of themes. Twice each year, the sun moves into conjunction with one of the nodes, and the period of about 40 days around the conjunction is called an eclipse season, during which any of the new or full moons is likely to, of course, become an eclipse. When eclipses occur, they do so in the same sign for about 2 or 3 years, after which they shift to a new pair of signs. Okay. Who is impacted most by eclipses? If the eclipses fall on one of your angular houses, so houses 1, 7, 4, and 10, then you're going to know all about the eclipse. If you are a mutable sign at this time, 2025, then you are going to feel it the most: Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius. Not as much if you don't have any planets, except maybe the sun there or the moon. But if you don't have a planet at the degree at which the eclipse is happening, you may not actually feel the impact. If the moon or sun is your time lord this year, and of course I mean this by perfection, and let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video on perfection and time lords, then you will feel the eclipse. Again, possibly not as intensely as someone who's got personal planets at the degree of the eclipse, but you're certainly going to be aware of it. And if you have planets, again, like I said, within a 1 degree orb of the new moon and full moon, these eclipses, remember eclipses happen during a new moon or a full moon, in a conjunction or opposition. Believe me, I know all about the oppositions, so do my clients. In conjunction or opposition. It just doesn't seem to impact, eclipses don't seem to impact, the other aspects, sextiles, squares. No, it's the conjunctions and the oppositions. So what to do? Avoid making decisions during eclipse season. Why? I mentioned this right at the beginning, because the energy is uncertain and unstable. It's normal to feel anxious and fearful and overwhelmed, because eclipse energy is, again, unstable and uncertain, and we as human beings do not like dealing with uncertainty. We like predictability, but uncertainty is just a universal, I don't even know how to explain it. And uncertainty is a principle. The universe exists in a state of uncertainty. And this is how we grow. It's through uncertainty that we grow and transform, especially spiritually. So the best things to do is to meditate and rest as much as possible during those between eclipses, right? So usually what happens is you have a lunar eclipse, then a solar eclipse. Usually have a lunar eclipse, then a solar eclipse. So in between the eclipses, you want to rest as much as possible, and you want to focus on your spiritual pursuits or your spiritual development. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. Do please hit like, give me a like, and do subscribe to this channel. It helps more people find me and learn more about the stars and about how just wondrous and incredible astrology is. So thank you for being here, and thank you for watching.